Good morning, Venters. Okay, I have to read some of these things to you because I don't want to take 35 times to say it correctly. So, as you guys probably know, and I'm sure you guys have been hearing, every single day we're hearing something incredible about the Trump administration. And I don't mean incredible in a positive way, I mean incredible as in big news. Usually, whenever presidents take over, you don't see so many things happen so quickly, or at least I don't remember it happening like this in the past. But here's some of the things that Trump has been doing that have been really upsetting our brothers and sisters on the left. Basically, they're making cuts everywhere. They plan to cut the Justice Department, They plan on cutting the FBI, and they also plan on cutting the Commerce Department. Additionally, the OPM, which is the Office of Personnel Management, is prepared for a 70% reduction in staffing and programs aiming to streamline federal operations. So that sounds to me like billions upon billions of dollars of cuts are in the works. Additionally, DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, led by Elon Musk, as you know, has initiated efforts to reduce approximately 40,000 people from the federal workforce by urging them to take a buyout, otherwise face resignations later or layoffs. I guess when you take a buyout, that is you agreeing to resign, right, rather than getting laid off. Furthermore, they've proposed a federal funding freeze affecting thousands of various agencies across the board. So it sounds to me like they're taking this really seriously. Now, I know a lot of these things sound horrible, and in some cases they are. We're going to talk about one of those things here in a minute. But this is kind of what a lot of people have been wanting. You know as well as I do that while some of these agencies and some of these employees are wonderful people, and we don't want to just pretend like they don't exist and, look the other way, right? But we also know that our government spends money like crazy. So we're going to try to get both sides of the story without your boy being a jerk, because nobody wants to hear things from a jerk, okay? So the FBI has sent a letter out, and I don't know if it was from one FBI agent or a commogulation, I don't even know if I said that right, or a ton of federal agents, but it could be any of them. And basically it was a letter that said, hey, I'm your fellow church member. I'm fearing losing my job for basically doing my job correctly, right? I'm the one that sits next to you at the soccer games. I arrest drug cartel members so that they don't do harm to you and your family or me and mine, right? And basically this letter was just saying that they were everyday people like you and me, that when you see them at the soccer game or right next to you at church, you don't necessarily know that they work for the FBI, but they do. And now, just like many others around the country fearing layoffs, right? Now they're going through those same fears. What they were trying to make a point of on this is that a lot of them do their job, and many of them do their job extremely well. And when you have a world full of dangers right around every corner, I just don't know if it's necessarily the greatest idea to be cutting FBI jobs. And when I say I'm not saying me saying it, I'm saying according to the person that wrote the FBI letter that was making the rounds on the internet today. So what I did was I took some comments, and this was from an NBC outlet, so these are predominantly left-wing comments. But again, they're comments that are important because you want to know how people feel that agree with you generally, but I think it's also good to know how the other side feels about things. That's what makes us human. So even if you're a Republican, you can empathize with all these things, because whether you're a blue member of society or a red member of society, we all know that things like layoffs, bills, the economy, those are things that stress out a lot of us, no matter where you are on the political scale or spectrum. Wow, that dog is huge. Look at the size of that husky. It looks like a wolf. Holy moly. By the way, in a minute, we're going to talk about USA Aid, because I find that story fascinating. At Delta Tango says, I would rather have hardworking, loving immigrants as my neighbors than hateful MAGA. So one of the things that happens after an election, especially one like this, where Trump is starting to, dismantle and make cuts all across the board, is you're going to have some people on the opposite side that are angry. And so this person right here is just saying, hey, I would rather have a loving immigrant next to me than have, somebody that's an angry MAGA person. So I don't know, whenever I see MAGA people, they don't really strike me as angry. They strike me as happy. They just like wearing those red hats. I've never purchased a MAGA hat in my life. Like I said, I consider myself conservative, right? I'm not against the orange man like many of you guys are. But at the same time, whenever people are angry, I like to kind of try to understand where they're coming from. And this is one of those things that does outrage a lot of people. Nobody likes the idea of tens of thousands of people, just losing their job overnight. Also, when you hear these things where it's like, hey, take the buyout that we're offering you, otherwise you risk a layoff here in the near future, those are things that are scary. And apparently about 40,000 people have already accepted the buyout. NHLB says, I hear that one immigrant can do the work of 9 Trumpers. Okay, so now we're equating people on the right side. I guess we're equating them as being lazy because it takes 9 of us conservatives, or Trumpers if you want to call us that, to do the work of one immigrant. And again, these are just comments that I assume people are just kind of venting. I think we can look at venting one of two ways. We can say, golly, that's negative, or we can say, hey, if it makes you feel a little better to write a comment on a random YouTube channel's, comments, go for it if it makes you feel better. As long as you're not threatening people and stuff, I don't have a problem with it. Jay Nicole says, wrong, wrong, wrong. So here's my first question to you, venters. Do you agree with Jay Nicole? Do you believe all these cuts that they're doing in quick succession? Do you think these are smart moves? Do you think these are not so smart moves? Do you think that they're good moves? Or do you flat out think they are wrong? Bill Meek, 4777 says, put Trump in jail. If you guys believe Trump belongs in jail, maybe let us know your argument down below. My thinking is they've been trying to put him in jail forever. If somebody was really, really as bad as they make Trump out to be, don't you think he would already be there? That's what gets me. They always make it look like it's such an open and shut case. Well, if that's the truth, then why are so many news agencies taking what's it called when you make a deal, instead of saying that you're wrong, you pay off the person? They have all these lawsuits with Trump, and they're all paying Trump tens of millions of dollars to, forgive them and they're making a settlement. That's the word I was trying to think of. Whenever you're rushing and you don't necessarily have good cue cards, it's hard to remember what you're trying to say. A lot of these media outlets like George Stephanopoulos and ABC, they end up paying the Trump administration $20 million or whatever because they're not always the most honest with their reporting. So again, my argument to you is, if Trump is nearly as bad as everybody says he is, shouldn't he be in prison? A lot of the judges that he sees aren't necessarily on his side, yet some way, somehow, he ends up being found not guilty, innocent, charges dropped. What gets me is that Russian Gate thing. Everybody and their brother knew it was a nothing burger, yet the media wouldn't drop that for a year and a half. And you guys know as well as I do, there was like a 6-month period where all we heard about was that Trump was in some Russian hotel having prostitutes piss on him. Now, I don't know about you, but if that was the rumor going around for 6 or 7 months, and for a 4-year period, they were telling you were in cahoots with Russia, and then you end up finding out that it's a big lie, that means all of those endless hours of media coverage that a lot of you guys absorbed, was bullshit. Don't you wish you could have that time back, you know? It's like, holy moly, tell me a nonfiction story about somebody. Don't tell me a fictional story. And by the way, a lot of those things probably went into people's decision making, you know, back in 2020 when they ended up voting as a country. We ended up voting for Biden. How many people voted for him because they didn't hear about the Hunter laptop story? We were led to believe the Hunter laptop story was fake. Guess what? It was true. So when people went on social media and they said Donald Trump didn't have anything to do with hookers in Russia, Donald Trump didn't have anything to do with collusion with Russia, Joe Biden and the Hunter laptop story is true, they were all censored so nobody could see it. So again, all of these people, I understand their anger and stuff, but I think part of their anger is still based on these untruths that they heard about the orange man the first go around. So again, put Trump in jail. I mean, I don't know what magical thing his lawyers must have done during the court cases, but some way, somehow, he never ended up going to jail. All charges dropped. Just seems to me like you gotta, at one point or another, you have to ask yourself, is the system rigged for Donald Trump, yet at the same time it's rigged against him? Is the media telling us the true story now? Because we know for a fact they weren't telling us the true story then. So here's the question I have for you. If someone comes up to you and tells you a lie, do you believe them moving forward, or do you ultimately just get to the point where you say, ABC, I don't know if I can trust you. CNN, I don't think I can trust you. You know, Don Lemon, I definitely can't trust you. If you start to realize that all these talking heads are just parroting the same lie, it gets to the point where a lot of people say, you know what, that's fake news. And even when Donald Trump would stand up and say fake news, a lot of people said that's him being a tyrant, that's him being tyrannical, right? And the reality was he was actually being honest. A lot of the news at that time was feeding us a line of bull. Now, was there some truth in that line of bull, right? Sometimes there's a vein of truth in every lie, right? I mean, I don't know about you, it just gets to the point where it's hard to believe people that are lying and taking settlements, paying tens of millions of dollars, you know, for libel and slander. It's just weird. Everybody says he is a convicted felon. Okay, well then how come when media outlets claim he's a convicted felon, they end up taking settlements and paying tens of millions of dollars for it? It's not because they're saying a truth. It's probably because they're describing a half-truth type situation. And again, remember guys, we're venters. You're always allowed to disagree with me and I encourage it. I'm not your enemy. I'm just the guy taking a walk with you. I don't know if I like these walks anymore. You know what? You're making an excuse. Just put your shoes on and get walking. The 25th Amendment should be done with all Republicans and Democrat senators removing them. Now, see, there is a piece of that I enjoy. I think that there's Republican and Democrat scumbags in there that do need to be removed. I think we as a people should never have senators and congressmen that go in there and stay there for 30 or 40 years. What are the odds anybody could win multiple elections and just stay as a senator forever? Doesn't that just seem like something that should never happen in America? These people are becoming lifetime talking heads and lifetime congressmen and senators, and some way, somehow, they are all amongst the richest people in the world. So they're super rich. Their friends are the elite billionaires, and then somehow, some way, they always talk about, let's tax the billionaires more. Yet the billionaires are in their back pockets. Oh, makes you sick. At Parame says, not only is starting a career over again, a lot to deal with. This is talking about that FBI letter where the person said, you know, hey, we're going to be getting fired and I'm freaked out about it. These agents don't deserve to be fired without cause. So that's the one that I have a hard time with. Let's say you were doing a job, and let's say it was for a crooked administration. You're working for the absolute worst president in the history of the world. But you don't know that. You're just doing your job. You're earning your paycheck each and every week. I think they should put a little due diligence behind this. Find out if any of those people are worth keeping. Don't just keep the people that are Republican and are on your side. Find out what everybody actually does from 9 to 5 for their job, and let the people that actually work hard for their weekly pay, for their salt, so to speak. I don't see why you have to fire everybody. I don't know why you have to send out 1,000,001, buyouts. It seems to me like out of every 100 employees, you're probably going to have a solid 80 or 90 that are probably worth keeping, that actually do a darn good job. I already know what's going to happen. If Trump makes all these cuts and all of a sudden we streamline government down, and let's say we start making some wonderful progress with not having to tax ourselves to death all the time, what's going to happen in 4 or 5 years, they're going to lead us to believe that everything Donald Trump and the Republicans touch, just is horrible. And they're going to end up coming back, and we as a people are going to probably vote in Gavin Newsom or, some left-wing guy, right, to be president. And they're going to end up hiring all these people back. They're going to start giving aid to a bunch of weird things that we'll be talking about here in the upcoming minutes. And it's going to end up all being for naught. It seems to me, in my opinion, this is just based on my life, it seems to me like conservatives are always talking about getting rid of government and spending less so people can have some more money in their pockets. And then it seems to me like the Republicans or the Democrats, feel the exact opposite way. Whatever President Trump has done, we're going to stymie that, we're going to stop it, and we're going to go the opposite way. So while we are talking about all these people losing their roles, which is unfortunate, I just have a feeling in 4 or 5 years, we're going to end up hiring them back and then some. One of the things that I really did not like about what Biden did was, didn't he end up hiring like 80,000 IRS agents, supposedly to make sure that the rich paid their fair share? Here's the problem I have with it. If you hire 80,000 IRS agents and they're all making $1,000 a week, because you got to pay them, it seems to me like all they're doing is collecting money to go right into their paychecks. I don't like the idea of hiring 80,000 people to find every YouTuber that's made $600 or $700 and make sure they paid their taxes, to hunt down every rich person and make sure that they dotted their I's and crossed their T's. I'm not a huge fan of the IRS. And that was like the great thing that Biden and his administration seemed to do over the last 4 years, is they would tell us about all these people that were getting jobs, right? Adding to our job numbers. And then you found out that the numbers were inflated. 2 or 3 months later, they would have to kind of give you an update on how the numbers were skewed and wrong. And then you found out that 80% of the jobs we were creating were federal government jobs. Guys, there's no money being made in that situation. It's just people absorbing tax money into their paychecks. Does anybody else agree with me? To hire 80,000 IRS agents was your grand success for the time you were in office? Golly, I don't see how that helps any of us as Americans. D. Pullman says, I will only feel sorry for the laid off government employees that didn't vote for Trump. Okay, you see the division here? The Trump ones are getting exactly what they voted for. So again, everything you vote for is just, it's on you. So again, if somebody's voting one way for one particular reason and somebody's voting another way for another particular reason, they're part of the problem. Let's talk about another major problem that is kind of an argument on our side being the conservative side. And by the way, again, I think that people have a right to be upset if they're going to be losing their jobs and stuff. Here's the problem I have with human beings. Most people don't give a shit if you lose your job. They only really care and whine when it's them losing their jobs. So here's the question I have for all the people that are being laid off. Did you really care about people being laid off before you were? Or did it really become something that you were concerned and actively talking about when it started to affect you? Because see, I think that's what happens across the board, whether it's crime, whether it's layoffs, whether it's the price of gasoline. I think when we're all doing well, we don't give two craps about what other people are going through. It just shows an overall lack of empathy. If someone loses their job, why should you care if they voted Republican or Democrat? To tell somebody, hey, you lost your job, it's because you voted for this, that seems kind of crazy to me. Now, on the other end, if you elect a bunch of Democratic judges and then they let criminals back out on the streets, I do say you voted for that. So you can call me a hypocrite, but I look at the two things as different. But it's okay if you call me a hypocrite. It's your opinion. We're allowed to have opinions. So check this out. We're all hearing now about U.S. aid and how it's being cut, right? Now, when you hear the word U.S. aid, doesn't that sound like we're providing aid to others? U.S. aid stands for like America's in, I already forgot what aid stands for, but it stands for something that has nothing to do with aid itself. It's like developing other countries around the world. USA aid has a budget that is greater than the State Department and the CIA combined. Here's some of the things that they spend their money on, okay? $1.5 million in DIE training for Serbia's workforce. Why the hell do you and I have to pay 1 penny for DEI training for Serbia's workforce? That's when it starts to click. And you start to say, oh my God, what a waste of money. How about $70,000 towards a production of a DEI musical in Ireland? I know you're thinking $70,000, that's not that much, Jesse. Well, it's not that much, but when you think about all the people in this country that are struggling and we're sending $70,000 to produce a DEI musical in Ireland, this is why people can't stand taxes and stuff. You're taking money from us and you're sending it for stuff that is just silly. $32,000 for a transgender comic book in Peru. Guys, don't you think that's a little weird, a little odd? You know, if we didn't spend money willy-nilly on these projects all around the world, maybe we wouldn't have to be contemplating doing all these layoffs at the federal level. It's no different than taking away someone's credit card. Do you really want your wife or your husband having the credit card if they have a gambling problem? Heck no. Would you want them having a credit card if they had a shopping addiction? No, that is crazy. And I hear that we pay like $1 trillion a year just in interest on our debt. We are literally going backwards because as a country, we allow this stuff to happen. It's crazy. Trump was asked about this and he said, hey, look, right now the US aid is run by radical lunatics. He's getting them all out. And then after he gets them all out, then he and his administration will decide the future of US aid. You know, when you read things like that, and I just read you 4 examples, guys. I've heard about 15 of them, and they were all basically the same type of stuff. Tons of money being sent all around the world for stuff that nobody in their right mind would ever want money and tax money to go towards. I wish that there was something more fun to talk about than cuts on the federal level. Some people look at those cuts and they think those are the worst things ever. I don't want those people losing their jobs. But then other people hear about those cuts and they say, why the heck would we spend any money on that? I don't want 80,000 IRS agents to have a job so that they can hunt everybody down for every single penny that they owe. I wish there was something cool. I wish the aliens would actually come down and visit us so we could talk about something fun. This stuff is no fun. If you are an FBI agent, if you are a CIA person, and you're losing your job in the near future, I do feel for you. Nobody wants to go through that. I wish you well. At the same time, keep in mind, there's a lot of people that are just frustrated with the way things have been going, and they look forward to this stuff. I, on the other hand, try to empathize with others. I don't want to see people struggle and lose their job because I don't want to lose my job. You know what I mean? With that being said, I also want you to maintain your health. So if you don't mind, take an extra lap. I'll see you tomorrow.